Welcome back to the Star Trek Critic, where each episode is ripped to shreds for errors in continuity and plot holes, and anything else we can think of. One of those things is sexualizing characters for ratings. Like here in this episode, the first thing you see is Spock's butt. This episode is the alternative factor, where the crew meets a traveler who has crossed from a parallel opposite universe and has met his opposite. However, when a positive and negative meet like that, they will cancel each other out and cause significant damage to the surrounding area. This is actually how the dilithium crystals work, harnessing the energy created when matter and antimatter come into contact with each other. And one point is lost here, since an oxygen-hydrogen atmosphere would be completely water. Spock says the planet they're orbiting offers no surprises. Famous last words. Looks like Kirk fell asleep at the wheel again. Just how many star bases are there? Suddenly, the Enterprise hits a bump in space. Kirk is awake now. Spock describes the solar system as blinking. Kirk accuses Spock of writing bad poetry. The planet they are orbiting reached zero gravity for a second, and now there is a person standing on it. Spock is using Fahrenheit instead of Celsius, so -1 point. The blinking was so big, Starfleet Command heard about it, thousands of light years away. This desert is also called the Enterprise. It looks a lot like Vasquez Rocks. The first point is lost again because the captain and first officer both beam down to the surface together at a time when the entire planet is blinking out of existence. The second point is lost because security should be going ahead of Kirk and Spock, not behind them, to provide security like they are supposed to. And the third point is lost because security keeps aiming their phasers at Kirk and Spock. They're going to lose a lot of points on this show. It's this little spaceship that's causing all the trouble. Security didn't check to see if it was safe for Kirk and Spock like they were supposed to, so -1 more point. How do they manage to say that on 60s TV? The life form is a televangelist. They're like, is this guy for real? The poor guy fell, so Kirk and Spock go to the rescue with security behind them again. Maybe the red shirts are heavy and weigh them down. This is Lieutenant Masters. She says the blinking effect has drained the dilithium crystals and now they are stuck in orbit. Spock says they are in the middle of the event. The Commodore gets online and tells Kirk the same thing and that he isn't sending them any help. And all of them are convinced it might mean some type of invasion. Lazarus is very vague about the monster he is chasing. Why couldn't he just say, it looks just like me? This Lazarus says the other Lazarus destroyed his civilization. It's very hard to tell the two apart, so -1 point. Kirk doesn't take sides. Spock doesn't find any evidence of a creature here, and loses a point for poor social skills. He is too sophisticated to directly call someone a liar. The planet blinks again and the two get trapped in their continuous fight. I think Khan said this too. Here is the fight scene between the two. You get the impression that each time this happens, they switch places, but that doesn't always seem to be the case. This time Lazarus comes back with an injury on his forehead, so this should be the other one, but then why does he recognize Kirk? But this version does seem to be a little more hostile. This stardate places the show between Arena and Tomorrow is Yesterday. Spock is slowly figuring out the patterns. He would have figured it out already, but you need to keep the audience hanging to keep your ratings. So -1 point for dumbing down Spock. Uhura really works her butt off, doesn't she? McCoy describes what he did for Lazarus. Kirk's response is, mm-hmm. McCoy boasts about how brilliant he is. Kirk's response is, mm-hmm. Of course, now he's just a country doctor. Lazarus left sickbay to get something to eat. And this is where I'm going to take another point. Here the camera watches this pretty girl in blue and miniskirt walk by Lazarus and sit down next to Lieutenant Masters. And the sole purpose is to watch her sit down with an open skirt facing the camera. She's pretty enough as it is. You don't need to angle her skirt towards the camera for ratings. The engineer comes in and talks to Lieutenant Masters about the dilithium crystals, which is exactly what Lazarus is looking for. But even before he follows them out the door, he also stops to check out the pretty girl. And she's like, okay, the scene is over, quit aiming that camera up my skirt. But before Lazarus can get to engineering, he trades places again. This happened on the Enterprise too, so it must have caused a disturbance on the ship. But since there was no disturbance at all this time, -1 point. The doctor's bedside manner is really bad this time. You don't rip the bandage off the patient like that. Kirk isn't happy with McCoy at all. That was a polite way of apologizing to his guest, but insulting the doctor like this again in front of Lazarus is just rude, so -1 point. And McCoy is pissed off at that comment because he's onto something. Here is a time where they actually do something right. Lazarus is escorted onto the bridge with a security guard. There is the cause of all their problems. Kirk asks a question, Spock gives him the logical answer, but Kirk is on a roll with jokes. Maybe it should sink in that his doctor and first officer are trying to tell him something. Spock has made the discovery and says that it is the dilithium crystal's radiation that helped him find it. Now Lazarus wants those crystals to catch his counterpart, but you can't beg, plead, and then demand in that order. But Kirk thinks Lazarus is just too vague and just wants to kill this creature. So Lazarus did leave with a security guard, but somehow security got lost and he is now wandering about the ship by himself again, so -1 point. If security was with him like they were supposed to be, they would have seen this transition, but they didn't. And now he's wandering around engineering unescorted. And now Lazarus is able to sneak up on Masters and the engineer, knock them out, and steal dilithium crystals. So -1 more point, since a spaceship should require restricted access to the dilithium crystals. Lieutenant Masters doesn't have rank on her sleeve, so -1 point. It's the other way around. Lazarus should report security missing. Kirk accuses Lazarus of attacking his crewmen and stealing the crystals. This Lazarus says it wasn't him, but we haven't seen any transition yet, so he might be lying, or did they edit out that scene? If you go by the bandages on his head, there has been a switch that we weren't informed about, so I'm going to take a point for deleting a scene that confuses continuity. This confusion is making Spock sleepy. Lazarus is getting a little pissy here, so Kirk is like, let's go down to the surface and check out your claim. Of course, when they get down there, no crystals or radiation can be found. I have to take another point again for the captain and first officer beaming down together. And when Kirk says, don't be afraid to use your weapons, a security officer again follows Kirk with his phaser pointing at him. So another point is lost for not learning the first time around. Oh look, security is behind Spock and pointing his phaser at him. How safe. This looks like the spaceship from My Favorite Martian. Kirk's telling them, the last time I was here I saw Finnegan and fought a Gorn. Did you ever notice that the Vasquez Rocks looks like a sinking ship? This time the transition throws him around a little. Lazarus trips on the rock and falls. Kirk wants answers. Lazarus now calls himself a time traveler, but his counterpart is in an opposite universe which is causing the problems. So -1 more point for Lazarus not giving Kirk all the information again. McCoy doesn't like musclemen in his sickbay. Spock and Kirk finally figure it out and realize how dangerous the situation is. They are still concerned an invasion force will come through from the other universe. Another point is lost here. No starship would ever have a panel you could randomly open and rewire to start a fire in engineering. And how did he know it would start a fire in the right place? The two escape to safety, and now this Lazarus also has dilithium crystals. So minus another point, since the crystals have now been stolen twice, and are just too easy to steal in this episode. The fire team has protective gear on, but Kirk and Spock run in right after without any. The next point is lost since there is no way Lazarus would know how to use the transporter. He could have beamed himself out into space. The next point is lost since Kirk tells Spock to follow him to the surface with a security detail. A ship this big would always have a security detail on standby to go at any time, and they should have gone down with Kirk instead. Didn't Darth Vader say this? Lazarus is ready to go, but Kirk gets in the way. So would Kirk also meet his counterpart from the opposite universe? Or is this doorway specifically meant for Lazarus? There is no explanation of why he ended up 100 feet away from the ship, although it would be possible this doorway can throw people that far. Here is the more rational Lazarus. It sounds like Lazarus was a scientist and his experiment with his time travel ship went horribly wrong. And there's only one way to fix it, and that's for both of them to be trapped between the two universes forever. Something tells me this might be an indoor set. Kirk goes back through with the intention of pushing the other Lazarus into the doorway. Another point is lost here. This fist fight is totally unnecessary and is only here for ratings. They need to act fast, not macho. And security just sits there and watches the captain of the ship get the shit beat out of him instead of helping him. All you have to do is stun him and throw him through the door. It doesn't matter if he's conscious or not. Here is a nice transition scene. Leslie was left in charge of the ship this time, and the first thing they do is fire at that little spaceship. I believe this is the only time you see the Enterprise at this angle. And the little spaceship is destroyed. Warp 1 sounds slow, but 4 of their crystals were just stolen, and only 2 were recovered, and they might not be working correctly, so they might want to take it easy on the warp engines right now. This episode ends with Spock and Kirk contemplating that the universe is safe again because they patched the hole between the two, but at the cost of Lazarus being trapped in there forever, fighting his other self. So who crossed through that rip in space? This pretty girl may have been in the show to boost ratings, but didn't get a screen credit. However, in the name of equality, the Muscle Man didn't get credit either. The Transporter Chief was played by Christian Patrick. Commodore Barstow was played by Richard Durr. We will see him in Star Trek one more time. Arch Whiting went on to Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Eddie Paskey took the helm as Lieutenant Leslie, and we'll see him several more times in Star Trek. Janet McLaughlin has 100 screen credits to her name, and you will see her again on the 13th floor. And Robert Brown, after playing the part of Lazarus, went into human trafficking. He and his brothers went to this small New England town, enticed 100 young girls with false promises, and lured them onto this mule boat, transported them all the way around South America, and dropped them off at the Pacific Northwest with the purpose of marrying them off to these mountain men. And strangely, this entire deal was funded by none other than Sarek. You guessed it, Spock's father. How unbelievable is that? Ironically, Robert Brown in real life had 4 separate wives. Only 96 more to go. And the alternative factor got a lot of points taken away and ended up with a score of 76%. That's all for today. Check out my other videos and playlists. Be sure to click that like button, the share button,